Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to episode 6 of my Ironman challenge. As you may have noticed here, I'm limping home a bit as I'm down to 63% hull and I've got no shields, and the rules of the challenge mean that I am unable to repair the ship. The goal of course is to get myself into a Vulture, but for now I've got to get rid of this heap of junk and buy myself a new ship, which of course is going to be a Cobra. If you're unfamiliar with the rules of this challenge, check out the video description. But the most important two rules are that if I lose my ship through destruction, I have to delete the save, effectively making this a permadeath situation. And the other most important rule is that I cannot repair any ship I've got. So that generally means if the ship gets too damaged, I have to swap it out for another one, which is what I've done here. Like I say, and as you can see, I've got myself a Cobra, and I quickly ran through the outfitting of the ship. Essentially I just go with the best rated modules I can afford, which in this case was all B rated modules. The station here didn't actually sell A rated modules at any rate, but I did have a little bit of money left over, so maybe if I had looked. Anyway, on to the most important aspect of a new ship, applying a paint job. Now each time I've flown a Cobra in my other series, I've always gone for a specific colour. With Commander Obsidian Ant, I've always used red, and I think I've also used orange with someone else, so that immediately knocked two colours off the list here. Took a little while to decide, but it's no big deal, is it? So in the end, I went with green. I did want to go with purple, but for whatever reason it kept showing up as blue, so who knows. Green it is anyway. Decals, I haven't got anything any good here to apply, so I felt I was better off without anything at all. So after that, it was straight onto the bulletin board. I can't do trade missions because that's one of the rules. I can't do any form of trading. It's a little bit too an easy way to make money in the early game. So that basically leaves piracy missions, combat missions, and of course smuggling missions. There's nothing in the rules preventing me from doing mining missions, although perhaps there should be. But at any rate, here was a great looking smuggling mission. Quite a good chunk of money to it, nearly 200,000 credits. So straight into a Cobra and straight onto a nice little mission like that. So at this point I've got about 1.5 million credits in assets. Still a fair ways off from getting the Vulture, but closing in on it. I focused a lot on smuggling in the previous episode, and I made quite a song and dance about trying to get past the security forces with using silent running and trying to keep my ship running cool. But this time I'm going to try something a little bit different. The mission itself is only one jump away. It's quite close. It's here at Back Station, or Back Enterprises. And what I'm going to do is basically just leave the station without any fuss at all. Just going to fly out the docking hatch as fast as I can, and we're going to see what happens. It seems that nowadays the police outside really don't make too much of an effort to try and scan ships, and even if they do, you can be well out of range by the time they start scanning, especially in a ship as fast as a Cobra. So perhaps that makes things a little bit easier. Things are certainly easier than when I originally started this challenge, but that's just how it goes. One of the more important things there was not to smash myself on the side of the docking hatch, as I also did in the previous episode for those of you that watched that. Nearly totally trashed my ship, and that would have been a rather unfortunate end for Commander Pompey III. Commander Pompey III, because both the first and the second died in the early episodes, but so far this guy has survived around about 4 episodes now. Well, assuming he makes it to the end of this episode, of course. Smuggling missions seem to be quite a good way of making money. Even very early on in the Sidewinder, if you go to the bulletin board and look for smuggling missions, you should be able to make yourself a few 10,000 credits fairly quickly, and that will allow you to upgrade your ship and get involved in combat if that's what you want to do. Talking of combat, that's what I'm planning on doing a little bit later. That's what I want to do after I've done 1 or 2 smuggling runs. Combat does keep things quite interesting. I've considered perhaps doing some piracy, and I'm a little bit unsure about that because I don't want to get too many bounties on my guys' heads, because obviously I'd get a lot of police forces after me, unless of went to an anarchy system, or a minor faction, independent faction, and tried there. So it's worth a thought. If I don't do it in this episode, I will perhaps do it in the next one. But the other downside to that is I really don't think there's a whole lot of money to be made in that, and I want to try and get to the end of this challenge as quickly as possible into that Vulture. Nearly 5 million credits is needed, and I can't do any of that with trading. So another good way of earning money fairly fast is combat. That does come with its own risks, of course. I do risk getting myself shot up, especially because I can only use fixed weapons. I can't use gimbaled weapons, and I can't use shield cell bank, so it makes combat a little bit harder than it otherwise might have been. Now, you saw there, I come in quite fast and quite hot. I didn't use silent running, I didn't use any other module deactivation, so I didn't cool my ship down. I just flew through the hatch as quickly as I could and approached the station as fast as I could. And it would seem that the security forces didn't even notice me, or if they did, they certainly didn't bother with even attempting to scan me. Of course, the cargo I'm carrying here is Imperial slaves. Now, I've got no real beef with trading in Imperial slaves. A few of you have commented on me being a slave trader, but Imperial slaves are voluntary slaves. They basically go into slavery willingly to pay off debts, and they have fairly cushy work. They don't have the harsh work that might be associated typically with slaves, and as soon as their contract is complete, they're free to go. So I'm not completely against trading in them. Full-on slavery, though, is another matter. Anyway, with that mission done, it was time to move on to some combat. So I spent some time looking for a resource extraction site, and I'll let you enjoy my journey there while you sit back and watch this clip. I'll catch you on the other side. Extraction sites haven't been playing all that well recently, which is why I've been avoiding them, but my first encounter within this particular one was with an Imperial Clipper, and here we are facing off. The guy seemed to be unwilling to attack me, but then decided to back off a little bit. As soon as I opened fire on him, he of course turned around and responded. I've got 2 medium pulse lasers equipped to the ship and 2 small pulse lasers. All 4 of them are fixed weapons, so I have to centralise the target before I can open fire. And because of the placement of the hardpoint placements of the small ones, which are on the outer wingtips, I don't always fire with all 4 lasers because all 4 of them don't hit. And if I do use all 4, it runs my energy down pretty quickly. So usually I rely on the 2 medium hardpoints. It didn't take all that long to strip this guy's shields down. Hull may be a little bit different, but I'm getting a little bit of help here at this point by the local security forces. Of course, the risk here is losing my shield, and it's looking like that was about to happen. Indeed, it did happen. Firing off a few chaff did help a little bit. Any damage I do take to my hull at this point cannot be repaired. But with the combined firepower of myself and the security forces, the Clipper didn't last all that long. So I spent my time flying around this extraction site, taking on the various opponents. For once, well, I was fortunate enough to get some decent targets here. Something other than just Sidewinders and Cobras were turning up. In particular, the area seemed to be full of Pythons, Imperial Clippers and Federal dropships. All of which I was more than willing to take on, and all of which were paying out very good bounties. There is a huge difference though with getting into this sort of combat without any type of shield cells, and you find your shields being stripped away again and again without any way of replacing them. That usually meant me having to boost past the target and turning around from him. Of course that didn't help if the guy had turrets. But in any event, this is a tactic that's as old as the game itself, and it still works rather well. I spent a fair old while in this extraction site, but eventually decided it was time to move on once I had a handful of bounties. I could quite easily, I suppose, spend my entire time within the extraction sites and earn myself a couple of million credits, enough at least to get the Vulture, but I don't really want to rely on any one single method to get to my goal. I'd rather use a mix and match approach. So far then, I've done missions, I've done combat, I've done smuggling. All that remains is some piracy. I'm still a little unsure if I want to go there, and if so, how I'm going to go about doing it. I'm getting ever closer to my goal now, and I've got to wonder how wise it is to take on the more risky careers, but at the same time, I don't really just want to sit around and take the simple approach. If any of you have some suggestions on what I can give a try, do let me know. I'd be very interested. But right here and now in the game, it was all about handing in those bounty vouchers. Before I wanted to do that, I thought it would be a nice idea to have one last look at the bulletin board, just in case there was a good mission there. But unfortunately, there was nothing of note, nothing that was going to give me any good money anyway, and a whole bunch of them that I was completely unable to do. I can't do the courier missions, I can't do the delivery missions. So that left me to hand in the bounty vouchers. I did have some finds here, no idea where they've come from at all, but oh well, I guess. I've got 750,000 credits more, pushing up my total assets to around the 2.5 million mark. That places me firmly halfway to my goal, and you never know, I might be able to do that within the next episode. If you have any ideas of what I can do let me know. Right then, before I go, there's actually one more thing I want to do, and this is a new thing I'm going to put regularly on the end of some of my videos, and that is to feature other YouTube channels, websites, artwork and anything else from the Elite Dangerous community. So I'm going to begin this with a mention of Commander Chaos Wolf. He has been creating Elite Dangerous videos for quite a while now, and is actually very good at doing them. He's recently started series 2 of an ongoing series he's got called Zero to Hero, and for this series he's set himself a challenge and has also got a number of rules which he must follow. And of course he makes a whole bunch of other videos related to Elite, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, do go check out his channel. I've put a link to his new series in the video description. Okay then, I'll catch you guys and girls next time. As always, thanks for watching.